Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's we're going to be comparing the all-new Jeep Wrangler Rubicon to the Ford Bronco Badlands. Before getting into the video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Starting under the hood of the Wrangler, we have a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 270 horsepower and then 295 pound-feet of torque. Now you can also get a 3.6-liter V6. You can also get a diesel. You can get a 6.4 Hemi. You can also get this powertrain paired to a hybrid system. So tons of powertrain options with the Wrangler, suffice to say. But the 2.0 turbo is a pretty solid, entry-level option. Now with the Bronco, this has their 2.7-liter V6 that's paired to a 10-speed automatic transmission. It's good for about 330 horsepower and then 415 pound-feet of torque. You can also get a turbocharged 4-cylinder, and then if you get the Bronco Raptor, you can get a 3-liter V6, which is basically this engine, but then just slightly bigger, but that's completely different segment, right? Now with the front end of the Rubicon, I think it looks really cool because notice we got like the hood vents there on either side, which kind of just make it look a little bit sportier. And then you can actually lower down the windshield with the Wrangler. Can't do that with the Bronco, sadly. LED lights on this particular Rubicon. And then what you'll also notice here is with the daytime running lights, looks pretty cool when you put it all together. And notice with the daytime running lights, it also integrates the turn signal there. And then you got the steel bumper there with the red toe hooks to signify that it is a Rubicon. And speaking of Rubicon, it has about 10.8 inches of ground clearance. Now, if you get the Extreme Recon package, that'll bump it up quite a bit to like closer to like 12 inches of ground clearance. It's actually more than 12 inches. It's like 13 inches roughly. Anyways, with the Bronco, on the other hand, it's a little bit more simplistic with the hood design. That's kind of what they went for with the Bronco. I do love that color though. I think that color looks really good on the Bronco. Definitely one of the better looking colors you can get with it. And what you'll also notice here is with the daytime running lights, circles, just like with the Wrangler. Kind of copy each other with that, right? Got a camera there in the center. And then steel bumper at the bottom, so just like the Wrangler, because this is all set up for off-roading. This one's the Badlands, by the way, which I feel like directly competes with the Rubicon, well, at least an Extreme Recon version, because this one has the 35s on it. And speaking of ground clearance, 11.5 inches. So if you get a Bronco with 35s, you have more ground clearance than a Wrangler with 33s, but if you get a Wrangler with 35s, you have more ground clearance than a Bronco with 35s. Hopefully that makes sense. 33s in the Wrangler, 17-inch wheels with it as well. Pretty solid tire and wheel setup for an off-roader. Frankly, like for most people, this is more than enough in terms of what it'll provide with the sidewall cushioning and then also with the ground clearance and with traction as well. Now, with the Wrangler, you have a solid rear axle. That's something that's pretty big to mention. You guys can kind of see it here at the bottom. And then this one obviously isn't, the Rubicon's lifted like a couple inches compared to a regular Wrangler, but it's not the Extreme Recon, which lifts it even more. And then I love how you have the red badges there on the side, trail rated badge, all that. Rock rail there on the side as well, which on my Wrangler, definitely use that. I got like completely high centered at one point, which is funny. Now, beadlock capable wheels here with the Bronco. And then 35s. Now with the Badlands comes standard with 33s. You have to get a Sasquatch to get the 35s with the Badlands, actually. And so a lot of people have been going for the regular Badlands because then they just upgrade the tires themselves and everything. But notice you got the Badlands logo right there. And then something else that's important to notice with the Broncos, you have independent front suspension. So the Wrangler, solid front axle, independent front suspension with the Broncos. There is definitely a difference there. And look at the side view. I think that looks pretty cool with the fender flares and everything. Now, Jeep's key fob is so cool because it's like unique to the Wrangler, which I think definitely adds to the flair. And then notice you got the swing out tailgate with the different JL series. Another cool function. And then lift up window as well. And you've got the roll cage that is body painted in the Wrangler, which looks pretty good. And then Alpine sound system with this particular Rubicon. And what you also notice is decent storage space here in the back with the Wrangler. I can say as a Wrangler owner, pretty practical when it comes to overall storage space. I use it for Costco runs every so often. I will say the window thing though, it's cool, but like it gets kind of old after a while having to open up both of them. Now the Bronco key fob has the Bronco logo, but it's just a regular Ford key fob, so I would say it doesn't feel special compared to the Wrangler. And then look at the rear end again with that color. It looks so good. And the spare tire, the 35, it's funny how it kind of looks small. It's like 37s are the new 35s, I feel like, in today's world. Tires just keep getting bigger on vehicles. Now, I hate opening up the Bronco's tailgate. It's got multiple compression points, which makes it easier to open up with the 35, but it just takes forever Storage space is pretty similar. It's just as practical pretty much as the Wrangler, so no downside there. Again, Ford basically took everything that's good about the Wrangler and threw it into the Bronco. That's, you know, a good way to look at it, which I don't complain about that. Now with the rear styling of the Wrangler, again, it's got that boxy SUV look that everyone knows and loves it for. And you can see that you can get different top options with the Wrangler, so like body painted versus not if you want. And I would say that if you get a black Wrangler, getting not body painted is fine, but if you get like a different color, body painted definitely brings things up a bit. LED taillights on this particular Wrangler, which I think look pretty cool, and then you guys can see with the recovery hook there on the back end, and then notice solid rear axle, and then you've got just Mopar shocks here with the Wrangler, no like special branding or anything on them, just Mopar shocks. Spare 33 there on the back with the camera in the center, normal JL Wrangler fashion. Now with the Bronco, you guys can see cameras also in the center. They learned some things from Jeep. Recovery hooks there on the back end with the receiver hitch. Now you've got Bilstein position sensitive shocks, solid rear axle. So the shocks are, I would say, are a little bit better on the Bronco, but not a massive amount better. Now popping inside with the Wrangler, you've got nice padding here. And then look at the seats. With this one, you can see the stitching on them. Well, this one has cloth seats. That is something else to mention. And then you can see that the grab handle helps out getting in and out. Legroom's pretty good in the Wrangler. Headroom's also solid as well. And you got little holders right there with the netting. And notice it's got vents in the back. It's very important to remember. Window controls there in the center, and then you got some charging ports with a full outlet, and then cup holders as well. And overall, you know, rear seat space pretty good in the Wrangler. Now I will say that I like certain elements in the Bronco interior a little bit better. Like some of the padding I think looks a little bit cooler, but then there's way more plastic in the Bronco. And then the seats, I think that they're a little bit more comfortable than the Wrangler seats, sitting in them. And then no vents there in the center, that's a downside. Something else to note about the Bronco is it has stadium seating, and so the rear seats are a little bit higher than the front seats, so it gives you a pretty good viewpoint. Now, popping back to the front of the Wrangler, nice padding. And if you like feel the material used in the door panel, I don't know, just do it with the Bronco and the Wrangler. And you notice the Wrangler stuff it looks and feels a little bit more high quality, if that makes sense. Less plastic than the Bronco. Rubicon seats, yet again, look at the stitching, and then you guys can see manually adjustable with these seats, and then 2-pedal layout because it's an automatic. You can get a manual Wrangler. You can also get a manual Bronco as well. And popping over to the Bronco, I feel like you can even see it in the video. Like, look how much more plasticky the door panel itself looks. And then front seats, again, these are a little bit more comfortable than the Wrangler seats, and I think the stitching looks pretty cool on this particular one. Again, you got your 2-pedal layout, and then notice with the hood latch release, the Wrangler doesn't have one because you just have the things on the hood that you release, which has always been interesting. And then I think it's pretty cool the coloration they add with the Broncos. It makes it look a little bit more unique. And then popping into the Wrangler, ooh, got a fancy startup animation there with our gauge cluster. So steering wheel looks really cool. Got nice red stitching there in the center portion. And then you guys can see radio controls in the back. You can't actually see, but they're back there. Trust me, controls for the center stack as well. And then you got your cruise control on top of that. And then your turn signal stock, windshield wiper stock. Really good looking steering wheel though. I love the design of the gauge cluster. Again, this came out for the 2018 model year, and it still looks really cool to this day, frankly, even though a lot of other gauge clusters are fully digital now. Notice you can see the off-road information there. And then like tire pressure, right? It's another thing with it as well. Now comparing that with the Bronco, we have like a bigger screen there in the center. Still have like little analog gauge, or not gauge, but you know, little analog setup there for the speed. I think the steering wheel on the Wrangler looks a little bit cooler than the Bronco steering wheel for the base Bronco, but Bronco steering wheel still feels nice. It's cool. It has a Bronco logo. Now it's got adaptive cruise control with that one, and then you got the regular stocks there on the back. And then with the gauge cluster here in the center, you can see we've got tons of different drive modes of the Bronco for both on-road and off-road use, which again adds to the flair. It's cool you even have like a Baja mode, because maybe you'll do some high-speed off-roading with the Bronco, which the Bronco can definitely handle high-speed off-roading better than the Wrangler, because independent suspension and then those Bilstein shocks help out quite substantially. Now, popping back to the Wrangler, first off, we got a backup camera, and it's got trajectory lines that turn the steering wheel. Resolution is pretty good on the camera overall. And then as for the infotainment system, you know, response time with it is solid. It's easy to use. It's got dual zone climate. This particular one also has heated seats and a heated steering wheel as well. And so, yeah, I'd say that, you know, overall functionality of the screen's pretty good. And yeah, we also have the off-road pages, which is kind of like your It's the off-road pages version of the performance pages that Dodge kind of invented. Now, with the Bronco Badlands, stabilizer bar disconnect for the front and rear lockers, and then you have like your trail turn assist and all that. Didn't really pop on the camera too well. Sorry about that because the infotainment screen's so bright. But it's got lockers and, you know, the stabilizer bar disconnect, so it helps out the articulation, but it won't articulate as well as the Wrangler because independent front suspension. 360 camera system. I will say the Bronco's camera system is way better than the Wrangler's. The Wrangler needs to, well, Jeep needs to up things up with the Wrangler to kind of bring it up tech-wise with that. An overall infotainment system, I'd say it's pretty equal. Now down below, we've got analog controls with the Wrangler, as you can see, for like the climate, the heated, cooled, or it's not cooled seats, but sorry, heated seats, heated steering wheel, recirculate buttons, little Jeep, which is pretty cool. You got off-road cruise control as well. And then notice the little Jeep on the windshield. You got those kind of Easter eggs throughout. Window controls in the center with a little charging port area, and then you got your auxiliary switches, 4 of them. Off-road plus, and then notice we've got a sway bar disconnect, front and rear lockers. So like I said, articulation with the Wrangler, way better than the Bronco. And then you have front and rear lockers, which, so it's great. Now, it is easier to activate the Bronco system, though, I will say. And then notice this has 4-wheel high as well as 4-wheel low, and then obviously 2-wheel high. So I guess for like a more novice off-roader, the Bronco would be easier to use. But for someone that's a little bit more advanced and knows how to use the stuff in the Jeep, you'll be able to get way more out of the Jeep when it comes to crawling, because the extra articulation, the solid axles and all that. And then notice with the center console there, normal Jeep fashion, not massive or anything. Got a grab handle, of course. And then glove box also not massive. That's one thing I will complain about in the Jeep. I wish the glove box in the center console was a little bit larger. And then obviously you can take off the top. Front part's pretty easy. The back part you do need to use tools for it. I always recommend people to get the top insulation with the Jeeps because it helps out quite a bit with sound deadening. And that is one thing I will mention. The Jeep is definitely a little bit noisier than the Bronco when it comes to sound deadening. So Ford's done a better job with the insulation. Notice analog controls for the heated seats, the dual zone climate, heated steering wheel, radio controls right there, little charging port, little Bronco plaque, which is pretty cool right there. And then shifter for that 10-speed automatic. It does have a manual shift function. And then notice we have 4-wheel auto as well as 4-wheel high, 4-wheel low. Got like your off-road cruise control, your drive mode select in that area, and then all of your window controls, and then mirror adjustments. And then center console, I think it's about the same size as the Wrangler, frankly. But if I remember right, yeah, the glove box is not too much bigger, but a little bit bigger on the Bronco. And then 6 auxiliary switches, so that helps out quite a bit. And then top insulation, which, like I said, it's a little bit better. So when it comes to on-road driving, the Bronco drives a little bit better on-road because, again, it has independent front suspension, so turn-in's better. It's a little bit sporty to drive. So as a daily driver, slightly better. Wrangler is better off-road. I will say, obviously, I had a first edition Bronco, and then I got rid of that and then got a Wrangler 392. And I'll tell you the reason why I did that is because I feel like the Wrangler is just a little bit more of an occasion to drive. The Bronco drives really well, but it's not as good off-road, like I said, and it doesn't feel as special as the Wrangler. Like when you drive the Wrangler, there's just some special sauce there. Let me know if you guys agree with me. That's all.